Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of Out of Our League, where we're really professional and we have some great guests that we get to talk to. But first, Caesar, how are you today?
There's an energy in the air. I don't know what's going on.
Are you going to throw a chair across the room today?
We'll see. We'll see how the day goes. Rebecca, for reference, we were talking about the blue box thing a few weeks ago.
The
And it
blue
was like
box
we're
games.
doing like a conspiracy conversation,
Yeah.
and I kept throwing my chair like backwards.
To be fair,
and at one point I threw my chair
joking.
as a joke. But at one point I threw my chair across the room because it was like escalation.
Yeah.
I'm just crazy. I'm sorry.
Every time I hear some new piece of supposed information about blue box, I simply want to shrivel up into a tiny clay shell and disappear.
It was more of making fun of the people that were like, "This has to be
This
Hideo
is not
Kojima."
me criticizing you. This is just me reflecting on
the last couple of weeks.
There was another blue box thing that happened. And I simply wish to fling it into the ocean.
Yeah. No, So I've been keeping close track of it, just because I actually love reading all the conspiracy because it makes me laugh, and then I make jokes about it, on shows depending on who's on. We had Kyle Stevenson on, who's a great kind of funny best friend and wonderful
PlayStation
person.
podcast host.
And 6-1 Indie as well.
Mm-hmm.
But we got in a conversation about it because he's a huge Sony guy. But yeah, the most recent one with the blurry picture with the person with the eye patch, and then people speculating that it's like a model from the store. Like it's so great. I'm so sorry.
If we go further, I will get like riled up because I actually have like a bunch of opinions about this that no one needs to hear. Because every time I tweet about them, people get mad at me. So
I actually love your tweets. Like the one time that you tweeted about it's not Kojima, stop it or whatever, like in all caps.
So mad.
The discourse on that tweet was ridiculous. Okay,
Why
quick.
do you hate fun? Oh my god.
Real quick.
So that's how I'm doing.
We have our producer, McKenna.
Hello.
How are you today?
I'm doing fantastic. This is already great, and it's only 3 minutes in. We're only 3 minutes in.
That's awesome.
We can tell we're kind of funny best friends. Like you can just.
If I had a garbage truck, I'd light it on fire, you know? And of course, you've already heard her voice, but our special guest today, Rebekah Valentine, working for IGN. How are you today?
I'm good. It's chaos. It's Saturday. There are people welding outside of my apartment. There's a thunderstorm brewing. My cats are losing their minds in the background, and Blue Box has already been brought up in conversation. So anything
Off to a
can
great
happen
start.
today. Who can say what the future
To be
holds?
fair, I forgot that the reason he threw it across the room was because of the Blue
really
Box
funny.
conspiracy. So that's my bad.
That's how I feel sometimes. Yes.
Okay, so for those who don't know who you are, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh my. Well, I am mostly a person. I am, as has been said, I am a journalist with IGN. I'm originally from GamesIndustry.biz before that, where I wrote for 2.5 years, and so my background is in reporting on the business side of video games, so how the video games that you love get made. At IGN, I do quite a bit more. I do reviews, previews, features, like a lot of other things, but do still kind of have that businessy bent, that bent of telling stories about development, which is what I really, really like to do. So that's the main thing. For a little while, I had a cooking podcast called The Cozy Wood Kitchenette. It's on hiatus right now because I'm trying to move across the country. But one of these days I'll pick it back up. I mean, that's what everyone says about the podcast they abandoned. But I actually do really like the idea, and I think it has legs, and I want to.
I know that feeling.
This is not enough time. I that came about because I tend to cook every recipe in video game cookbooks one at a time. So that's like an ongoing project. If you follow my Twitter account, I've got 2 very stupid cats. I have some houseplants. I don't know. I like to do things. I read books sometimes. That's what I do. That's me.
Now, earlier you said you don't watch movies ever before we started filming. And I know you were joking, but But when it comes to book to movie adaptations, this has just made me think about it. Are you one of those people that can separate yourself from the book into a movie, or do you not have that ability? Are you someone that like you're just so into the book, you're adamant that no, it's not right. This isn't how it should be.
No. I think we can have wonderful movie adaptations. I think there are many wonderful movie adaptations of books. I think there are wonderful movie adaptations of books that change the source material in some way or another. But it's very case by case basis. I mean, you can't just like change the whole spirit of the original intent of the work, right? Like, you know,
Yeah.
I mean, like the very obvious example is the Lord of the Rings trilogy is pretty good. I like the movies. The first Hobbit movie is good. The ones after that are a little questionable. Actually, a lot of questionable because they just like totally deviate from the intent of the books. But that's a whole different discussion. But yeah, no, books to movies are fine. No, the joke about never seeing a movie is just because I haven't seen a lot of movies. I'm not really a movie person, not as much. I've seen like a normal amount of movies. But I have like way too many friends who are film critics, just so many.
Oh,
And
sure.
especially when I moved to Kansas City, and so they got together and they decided they were going to show me all these movies and just like bombard me with classics. And some of them are pretty good. I mean, I've had a good time watching movies, but I bought a t-shirt recently that says in big letters, I have never seen a movie and I never will. And it's just meant to be sort of a joking response to people going, you haven't seen fill in the blank like every 5 minutes. So no, I just say that a lot because it's just a silly.
No, absolutely. We have a friend who her name's Erica, and we are constantly talking about movies, and she will say, "Oh, I've never seen that." Like she just recently went through every single Marvel movie up through Endgame,
Oh my, that's
because
so
we
much.
kept referencing Marvel all the time, and she hadn't seen any of them. So yeah, she just finished that. So we know
So
what
much
that's like.
work. That's a
Yeah,
lot of
It
work.
is.
100%.
I just
I
watched
don't want
all.
to do that much work.
Oh yeah,
I don't blame you, honestly.
yeah.
I don't think I've ever done a
What was
full
that, McKenna?
rewatch.
Oh no, I was gonna say we were doing that because we're doing a podcast, and I didn't realize I was on that podcast, and I have never seen all of the movies, so I watched all of Phase 1 this week in one go.
Oh
That's so much work.
my!
It's a
A lot of work.
I
don't.
I just got done with Avengers about an hour ago, and I have to record tonight, and it's a lot, and I'm in the same boat where I haven't seen a lot of movies either. So it's like I know exactly how you feel, Rebecca.
You like them? Are you enjoying them at least?
Yeah, it's a good time. Yeah, it's been really
Okay,
cool
okay.
being like, oh, I get that reference now because it's from Marvel, and I didn't know that before.
Sure.
Today I
That's
learned.
Marvel. I think the thing that I'm like having to come to terms with myself as I do these is like I'll start out on some of these, like especially the TV series. Like I watched WandaVision and I watched the beginning of it and I really liked the first few episodes, but the further it got, the more Marvel it got. And then I had like I had the same problem with Loki as well. Like I really liked the first like half or so of that series, but then towards the end, I just like the whole thing was just a setup for more Marvel. And I think I'm coming to terms with the fact that I like some of the things that they do, but I just don't like Marvel that much because the whole thing is just set up for more of itself. And that's too much work. I'd rather sleep. I'd rather take a nap.
Well, I think the shows are more of a catalyst for setting up Marvel things than the movies. I
Well,
feel like
that
Sure.
the movies stand alone really well. The shows are
yeah.
definitely just like the shows are definitely to drive the whole thing
Yeah.
and like make things make sense in a way.
That's fair enough. Yeah. And some of the movies I've liked better than others.
Like for example, I think Black Widow's fine if you just watch it by itself.
I didn't see that one. I should because Florence Pugh is in it.
She's great. She's amazing.
I did like Black Panther a lot. I like that very much.
It's another
So
one.
That one stands alone quite well.
Yeah, I have to say that was the big driving force behind me going and seeing Black Widow, was Florence, because if you know the Marvel universe, there's something
It's
that has
whatever, I don't
happened
care.
to the main character of that film, which makes the fact that there is a whole movie about it kind of strange within the timeline. So I was like, but why though? However, hearing that she was playing opposite of Scarlett Johansson, I was actually really excited about that. So yeah, that made me really excited to see the film, and I enjoyed it. Actually, enjoyed it quite a bit.
Florence Pugh is an angel.
Watch it on Disney
Agreed.
Plus before Scarlett Johansson gets removed.
Oh no,
Did you hear about that?
they just digitally remove her from everything.
Well, no,
Anyway,
it's
this-
the lawsuit. And we're not here to talk about that.
I know, that's what I'm saying. They're going to digitally remove her from everything because she wants more money. But yeah, we're not here to talk about that. I was actually introduced to you through Games Daily when they would read parts of and or link to just about every single one of your articles every single day.
Yeah.
And then I just kind of became a fan and enjoyed, just the different articles that you would write for GamesIndustry.biz. And so far, everything you've done for IGN, I've also really enjoyed, which also led me to, following you on Twitter and having a lot of fun reading some of the amazingly ridiculous discourse that happens from your tweets.
You think this is like maybe a controversial take. When people are just mean to me out of nowhere, when total strangers just show up and are mean to me over stupid things I say, I just block them. I don't care. You'd think that eventually, after removing enough people who were just outright nasty to me, out of the blue, just like walking up to a total stranger on the street and just insulting them for no reason, like that level of thing, you'd think that after doing that enough, eventually everything would be peaceful, but it never seems to happen. It's just endless. But there are so many nice people. There are just a lot of very nice people. I have a lot of nice people that I'm connected to on twitter.com, and that makes it fun.
That's the hard part, right? Is the fact that there are good parts of it. Like I wouldn't have met McKenna, I wouldn't have met Caesar, I wouldn't have started this podcast, I wouldn't have done a lot of this stuff if it wasn't for Twitter and social media. But there's also a lot of toxicity, whether it's, some, like you were just saying, some random person just bringing toxicity in a place where they literally don't have to respond. And it's not like they're adding anything constructive or like a counter argument that could be like, oh, that's something I didn't think about. Huh, interesting. No, it's just blatant toxicity for no reason, and it's horrible.
Yeah, you can just be normal. You can just have a normal day on twitter.com if you really want to. It's fine.
Please.
Yeah, like, I mean, most of the people I interact with are like really wonderful. Like it's fun. I'm glad that you like my dumb tweets.
Do you feel like I feel like the answer is obvious, but I just want to like get your take on it. Do you feel like a lot of it comes from the fact that you are a woman that works at IGN, one of the biggest video game news,
or just
networks on
video
the
games
internet?
in general?
Yeah, just like in the video games industry. Like, do you think that's some driving force that just because you're a woman, not necessarily the content of the tweets, but
Yeah.
purely because of the way you're born?
Yeah, for
Like,
sure. I mean, I think it like layers on top of itself, right? Like it's like there's an element of there's like always the element of like being a woman. Like the same tweet from a dude is like might still, because I mean I have spicy tweets sometimes. Like the same tweet from a dude is like might get some nonsense, but it's gonna get more, like just by virtue of the fact that I'm like very visibly female, especially. But like I think on top of that, I got hired at IGN 6 months ago. I was at GamesIndustry.biz, like the longer I was there and the more attention my work got, like it did slowly ramp up. But this is such a weird thing to talk about because like it sounds like a brag, right? It sounds like a really like stupid, like petty brag. Like
but you did do a lot of amazing work.
Well, but I got verified on Twitter recently, and I hit over 10,000
Congratulations.
followers. Right, like that should be like a oh cool, or like a very stupid thing like oh who cares, right? And like to some degree, yeah. I mean it's cool to have an audience, and like I try to use that audience in like that platform in useful and good ways. I try. I don't always succeed, but I try. But like the reality is, once you hit like about 10,000 or so, Twitter gets weird. Twitter gets real weird. You get like people who just message you weird things, like weird, not even necessarily like inappropriate, but you just get weird messages like constantly. You get like people think that like your tweets are like a giant bulletin board like for the world that they just like feel compelled to weigh in on, like just the most even the most mundane boring things. It's just weird to like constantly be asked like, something that like someone has like a private Facebook like with their friends and family on it, and that's what my Twitter used to be. It used to just be, yeah, it's a public thing, but it used to just be a space for me and my friends. And like, because no one cared. Like 10,000 people out in the Twitterverse didn't care what I had to say. So I just like, oh, here's a picture of my cat. Here's some food I made. Here's a dumb thing that I thought about just now. And like, that was fine. But at a certain level, it becomes like unusable like that. And you have to like think through everything to be like, what stupid thing is someone going to say about this? It's very weird. I'm not like upset about it. I'm confused. This got like very upsetting very quickly. I'm very sorry.
I'm sorry. No, well, I kind of wrote it. It's funny because you said that and you're like, Twitter gets weird after 10,000. I was like, I wonder how long it'll take for me to find like somebody who's just weighing in on a weird thing. Literally, the last tweet you made 2 hours ago, where you posted a picture of a mysterious thing. You said, "Oh my god." The first comment is nightmare fuel,
Yeah.
and it's
I
like,
don't know who said that. That might be one of my friends. So I don't want to like dunk on them. But I mean, I had like a tweet.
like yeah, like you said, like it doesn't matter what you say, somebody has an opinion
Yeah.
on it.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah,
feel
so
like the bigger you get, the more likely you are to get that, especially if you are in a minority section.
Yeah, and sometimes it's like harmless. Like nightmare fuel is like harmless. It's just like whatever. But
but
like,
it's still just like weird.
some people will weigh in and just be like, why'd you write this? Or like they'll try to start like a debate with like they want me to debate them. Like
Mhm.
it's like just something. It's like I will make like a statement that I intended to make to people who are like like on a normal Twitter account you would make that statement to a
Like
group
it's
of
not
people
Hideo
who are like
Kojima's.
friends. But then like because you have that audience, it's like you have like a megaphone and you're like screaming into it at all times, and so there's no. But I mean that you know that going in, so I don't know. It's like it's weird. It's weird. I feel like I'm complaining about nothing.
no, you're fine. To that end, how do you deal with the negativity? Like for someone that wants to get into games journalism, especially as a woman in the industry, like how do you deal with that negativity from day to day?
I mean, so some things like I mean, to preface all of this, like it's never your fault if you're getting that. It's not your fault if people are just showing up to shit on you. It's like the onus should never be on you to change. It should be on everybody else to be better. Like that's the way it should be, and that's what it is. So no, like you shouldn't have to like come up with all these tools to block people who are being nasty to you and like find support groups and stuff like that. You shouldn't have to do any of that. You should just be able to be a human being. But all that aside, there are like some things that I do because I just that's the world is a certain way. I can't change everybody. So yeah, like I'm pretty I said I made a joke about it earlier, but like I'm pretty fierce. If you are a random stranger and you show up and the first thing that you say to me is something nasty or rude or insulting or sexist, I'm just gonna block you. Like I don't care. You do not have a right to my personal thoughts, and I don't have any interest in continuing to share them with you. So if I never think about you again, cool.
Oh well.
But like sometimes people will come up and they'll say things that are like a little bit aggressive, but still seem curious or like they don't understand. I try to engage with people who are like that, who seem like they're sincerely asking questions, because sometimes they'll change their minds. Like sometimes they'll just get mean, but sometimes they will change their minds, and that's like not on anybody to do. Like if you just want to filter that out too, you should be able to. It's like hard. It's hard to walk that line. Outside of just being really aggressive about shutting down my social media, find other people in your sphere if you want to get into games media who are dealing with the same things and I have groups of women that I speak to, and we just support each other and talk to each other and are there for each other when this kind of stuff happens. And it helps to have a group of people who understand what you're going through, who aren't like so outside of it that they have no idea. Just be able to say, man, like this thing is happening. Like somebody screenshotted one of my tweets and posted it to a bunch of really nasty people the other day, and now I have a bunch of people sending me death threats in my direct messages. This sucks, and yeah, they can't fix it for you. They can't turn that off, but they can support you and they can be there for you. Sometimes like we share tools around, or like to sort of filter that stuff out. And yeah, it's just I don't know. It's helpful to have people who understand, who can support you. Those are like I don't know. Those are my best advices. It's like, it sucks that there's not really better advice out there, because Twitter is kind of bad in terms of the tools it offers to protect people who are more vulnerable. Yeah, I don't know. Protect yourself. Be aggressive, like if you have to. Like don't be afraid to just shut people down. You don't owe anybody anything.
When I I run a video game news show called Patch Notes. I run it with McKenna. She produces it. I host it. We have a Twitter account, and for a while there was only like one DM in the Twitter account, and when I checked it, it was like trash show. And when I went to report it, there was like very weird options, and the one that I submitted, which made sense, was like offensive type of thing. It was like, well, you could just block them, and I'm like,
Yeah.
that doesn't really help. Like,
Yeah.
like that's not really a good option,
Yeah, it's like I don't understand why people treat Twitter like this. Like, you wouldn't just walk up if you see somebody on the street who's like talking to a group of people, like they are a group of people who are having a conversation. You don't just walk up to them and say, "Hey, you're trash." Like a
Yeah.
total stranger. Why would you ever do that in person?
Yeah.
So why would you do it on Twitter.com? Like, who needs this?
Yeah, and if you're in a situation like that where there's clearly somebody that's supposed to be supervising everything, somebody told you something really offensive to your face, and you reported it, they shouldn't just be like, just tell them to stop.
Yeah.
That shouldn't be the solution. That shouldn't.
It's like being in a bar and someone keeps coming up and going, hey, what's going on? Hey, just constantly pushing you. And you're like, hey, can you get this guy to stop? And they're like, can you just
Can you
ignore
go
him?
to the other side of the bar?
Right, yes.
Yeah. Can you just
What?
ignore him?
No.
Oh my god. Isn't that what the bouncer is for? You know?
There's no bouncer on Twitter.com.
Right. No,
You
no,
have to be
no,
your
no.
own bouncer.
I know. I was just going through the logistics of it in my head, and I'm just like thinking about the scenario.
Twitter is the bouncer that's always
And-
on break.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Yeah, has the power to
God.
use it.
That's just such a crazy thing to think about when you put it in like a realistic perspective like that. A real scenario. Because yeah, the anonymity of Twitter just adds so much, and video games in general is so interesting. Like I was in a match of Fortnite for like 2 seconds, and because I forgot to turn my mic off, and someone was yelling at me and yelling profanities and words that was just crazy. I was like, "What are you doing? Why aren't you moving? Why aren't you?" On all these words, and I'm just like, "No, I'm out," and I just quit because nobody needs that sort of abuse. And like, why would you verbally abuse the person you're about to play around with like that in a video game?
Right. Like, we live in a society, people. Like, you gotta, this is a social contract. Like, leave people alone. I don't know.
The Joaquin Phoenix Joker fans, we live in a society. So
I
just think about that a lot.
Before I ever knew about that joke, I read a lot of The Toast, which was an incredible. It's still up somewhere. It's an incredible website run by Nicole Cliff and Danny Lavery. Very silly, very feminist, very literary. But Nicole Cliff would say we live in a society, sort of in reference to people behaving badly in society, to like people doing things that like sort of break the social contract. And she would say that a lot, and I didn't know about the Joker thing. I just heard it in her voice, like kind of in the voice of this not Karen like, but like this very normal like middle-aged woman going, "What are you doing? We live in a society. We can't treat each other like this." And so I like inputted that into my vocabulary, and then later on found out about this Joker thing, and now I'm like referencing a meme on accident every time I say it, and it's very embarrassing for me.
I used to listen to Collider, which was like this movie podcast, and almost every episode, it was like a daily show. Almost every episode, the host, she would always be like, "We live in a society," like as a joke as like a reference to the Joker. Like,
Oh wow.
but yeah, I don't know. Speaking of society, I guess. Do you the transition? So you've been working as like a video game journalist for a while. Do you feel like reporting on the news of the industry, both the good and, like as we've seen in the last few weeks, the bad, do you feel like because you know so much of how it works, it has enhanced your experience in a way when you
Or
play games?
detracted from it.
Or detracted? Like, how do you, like, being on the inside? Because there's a lot of industries where, like, once you know how the sausage is made, you lose interest.
Oh,
But
no.
do you feel like this has changed anything?
No,
Okay.
I love it more. So yeah, I mean, I got kind of a weird start, right? Like I went through, I came up at games industry, and so yeah, like the majority of my games writing was not the kind of games writing that most people do. It wasn't like reviews. It wasn't, these kind of big features about games or anything like that. It was sometimes really dry. It was really boring sometimes. And I'm gonna clarify that in a minute. But like, it was stuff that on its face is very boring. It's like, company you've never heard of raises $1 million in a funding round from these boring investment companies that you've never heard of. And like, that was the story. And it gave me like a different appreciation for, yeah, right, like how the games that I love get made. I mean, that ended up being why I got into the industry in the first place, is because I went, when I was still a freelancer before games industry, I went to an E3 and I talked to all these incredible developers while I was there, who were all just so excited about their games and were telling me about, what they had made. And I was like, wow, I love this. I want to learn how this stuff happens, how it gets here. And so that's accidentally what I did at Games Industry. And the longer I was there, the more I found out that, yeah, sometimes the stories are really dry and boring and full of numbers and very weird. But when you look back at them and try to get a clearer picture of, excuse you, thank you, of how, so you can write like these things about funding rounds or whatever, and then 2 years later, a company comes out with some game that just takes the world by storm. And then you go back and you look at all those smaller stories and you're like, oh, this company was involved in like AI technology and like that's how that got here. And you can kind of like put the pieces together as to how they got from point A to point Z through all of these little like boring tidbits, and it gives you a clearer picture. So I mean, to sort of reference something ridiculous, Blue Box, not to get on my high horse about this, but one of the things, and I'm not going to like reference any specific stupid conspiracies here, but a lot of people were like freaking out about certain elements of Blue Box Studios that they claim didn't add up. They're like, why does this studio only have like 1 or 2 guys? Why is the address at just somebody's house? Like, why is its website terrible? And it's looking at that, seeing people get mad about that stuff was so wild because I've covered so many small startup studios like that. They're all like that, guys. Every single one of them. Like, clearly you have never looked at the website of a tiny studio that just announced, that has barely announced a game that it hasn't even shown yet before. Like, this is so boring. This is a non-thing. But like, I had that context, right? Like, I understood that. So I was able to look at this and go, no, this is nothing. And meanwhile, everyone else loses their mind. But that's what it's like, right? Like, it enables me to sort of look at stories with a different lens and understand what is actually news and what isn't. People like to get all excited about numbers. Company says, oh, we sold this many copies, and it enables me to look at that and go, yeah, that's actually really impressive, and here's what that might mean for that series, for that company, for that game. Or I can go, that's actually a very normal amount of games to sell, so I don't know why we're so happy. Like fine, good for them. Or I can go, that's not actually good. Are they okay? They wouldn't report it if it wasn't actually good because they don't like bad numbers. Yeah. But yeah, that's the thing. Like, it gives me this extra insight that I think anybody can get. Like, it's not like some magical superpower or whatever. It's just, from doing the work for doing a different kind of work than a lot of other people in the space for 2.5 years. I have a different kind of understanding of these things. Other people have other skills in this industry that are much more honed than mine in terms of how they look at things and how they answer these questions. But I like being able to look at boring number sheets and basically say, yeah, actually, here's what that might mean for this game company in a couple of years. Like, here's what we might see them do. And that's really cool. I like doing that a lot.
I think analytic articles are, sorry to cut you off there, Caesar, are really interesting because they can shed a lot of light to different perspectives that you may not think about. I always like looking at the Bloomberg or other reports that are talking about different game analytics because it can show you a lot of things that you're not seeing in the normal representation of games media. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's really cool. Looking at the numbers can definitely show you a lot of information that you wouldn't normally notice.
Yeah.
I guess
it's also just fun. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I was gonna build on that, but just go ahead.
I was gonna say the other kind of really nice angle is, yeah, like a lot of what I do is sort of reporting on these heavier things, like these more serious, these really sad stories about what happens in the industry when people are not treated like human beings. And that sucks. I am trying to get better at doing that. I'm trying to do that empathetically. I hope we are all trying to be more empathetic in our reporting every single day. But the other side of the coin of being able to do that kind of reporting is that when there's not, an immediate crisis to report on, or when there's not something dark that I'm investigating, there's a whole lot of studios that are doing really, really good, lovely things. And it's really cool to be able to just talk to developers, talk to publishers about, hey, like what's your story? How'd you get this idea for this like really cool thing? Walk me through it. And then getting to pass that story on to other people. And I love that. I love getting to like actually directly tell the specific story of what, like, I've got a couple interviews lined up right now that I'm hoping are going to do something like that for some games that have come out recently. And I'm super excited about that. So,
oh, that's awesome.
I like that part. This industry is many different things. It is at times really, really bad and mean and cruel and harsh and blatantly sexist. Also, sometimes it is good, and video games are good, and people can be good, and a lot of people that make games are really good and really talented and are trying their best. And I think we need to write about these awful things that are happening because we need to shed light on them and make sure that they can change. But alongside that, I think it is important to also tell the really good stories, because if we don't highlight those, then what are we fighting for, right? Like, we're fighting for good things to get made by people who are taken care of, and who are not and who are unhindered and unhurt in their working environments, and who are safe and comfortable. That's what we want.
You basically answered what I was going to ask next for
Oh,
me.
that's
No,
awesome.
but it's interesting, right? Because obviously we all know what happened at Activision Blizzard, but somebody had brought up Insomniac previously, in the sense of like nobody really heard about the fact that when Ratchet and Clank and Rift Apart came out, developers were talking about how good the working conditions were, and that just wasn't news, and nobody really talked about that. Do you find that weird that there's always a big highlight on the tragic news, but when there's something positive, we kind of just brush it off?
So two things on that. Insomniac, I'm careful about, because there were also some tweets from people who were pushing back on that, saying that they had a hard time.
Okay.
I didn't report on
Like,
it. I don't
I
know the
didn't-
full story. I'm not gonna. Is
I
that a
didn't know much
cat
about this
also
either.
on top of all the dogs? This is incredible. They just keep coming. There's just more animals. This is
I can go
beautiful.
grab my tortoise too if you want.
It's okay. That's
I'm just
wonderful.
regurgitating what I heard on another podcast. I don't.
No, you're fine. You're totally
Yeah.
fine. But that got buried too, because I mean oh man, there's so many different things to this. So
But
yeah,
so, like,
so you're right. You're generally
something
right.
good
Yeah,
happens in general.
yeah, a lot of good. And I think there's multiple reasons about this. I think some of it is just like a general, not even in games, just a general human tendency to, when a bad thing happens, we all go, oh my God, and we all freak out, and we all like
Focus
hone in
on
on
that.
it. But then
Yeah.
like we kind of diminish the good things that happen every single day. I think that's just a human thing. I think that happens in every field of news. I don't think it's unique to the games industry. That's something that we have to try to be better about personally, and just like not completely focus on the bad. But I mean, the other side of that coin is like we want the good to be the norm, right? Like, we want to be used to. We don't want to devalue the good, but we want to be used to it. Like, we don't want the bad. We don't want bad news like this to show. Like this Activision Blizzard thing, it's really good that it's getting all the attention that it is, because if we just write it off tomorrow, then change doesn't happen, right?
Mhm.
Like, and we just go back to the status quo of awfulness, and that's no good. So yeah, I think it gets more attention. I think in some ways it's good that it gets more attention, because that means that people are actually like pushing for something to get better and for something to be done about it. So yeah, I think that's important too. I think like you can't like write that off, right? Especially with I mean, this is a little bit of a different situation, because it came out through an investigation and like lawsuits in the courts and things like that. So it was a little different than someone doing a bunch of reporting, but still, this was a situation where someone was in there for 2 years doing 2 years of work, and all this work coming out at once. So that's a huge amount of work. Whereas like, usually the nicer stories are just, oh, this thing happened yesterday, there it is. And that's great. Like, we should pay attention to that. We should celebrate that. But that the
This has
amount
been
of
something that's
information
been boiling up.
yeah, and that's the same thing with journalism too. Like, if I'm doing an investigative report, usually I'm sitting behind the scenes working on it for months. Like, it takes so much time, and many people have to relive trauma and to bring that stuff to light. And the amount of energy and effort, like it doesn't deserve to just be swept aside, right? Like we should pay attention to it. We should give it the spotlight. We shouldn't shut up about it. We should, keep it out there until something meaningful happens to make things better and right again.
So, and last question I have on this topic, without really talking about it. When there are outlets that say, not to call anyone out specifically, but they say they don't want to report on these companies that have done these horrible things.
Yeah.
When they say they don't want to cover them anymore, do you think that helps the problem, or do you think that makes it worse when they say they no longer want to cover like Activision Blizzard?
I think it's a hard choice to make. This is a complicated one, because like I obviously IGN has done no such thing. I think if you are choosing to, man, there are like many layers to this. So if you're choosing to not report on the issue at all, like what's going on currently, I think mostly that ultimately hurts, but I understand why some outlets just can't touch it, because it is a really fraught question. Media outlets get sued over this kind of reporting if like lawyers have not had a look at it and make sure, because people like to sue for I don't know, slander or libel or whatever.
Defamation.
Yeah, defamation, like whatever that is. So you got to be really careful in this reporting. Like, you got to have multiple editors look over it. You got to have legal teams look over it. It is really tough to do. So I understand why smaller outlets might not be able to touch this issue at all. But especially in this case where it was like an actual legal document that came out, you can at least say, well, this document happened and here's what it says in it. Like, you can at least do the minimum of that. So I think if you're just writing it off 1000%, that's probably not the right choice. Now, the people who are covering the issue, like, as it goes on, but then saying we're not going to do like we're not going to like cover their games anymore. We're not going to write about World of Warcraft anymore. We're not going to write about, Call of Duty or whatever. I think that's a really tough choice. I think there are some outlets who it's easier for, who already don't really write much about those games, and so it's a very easy decision for them to make, and I respect it fully. I mean, I write for IGN, and we're not making that decision, and that's for a number of reasons that are beyond me, and that's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
I think ultimately the best thing to do is to look at this situation very, very carefully and have it in mind. Like, don't let it go. Like, yeah, you're still gonna whether if you're still gonna write about this again, like, don't just go write a glowing piece about whatever Activision feeds you next, right? Like say tomorrow, I have no insider information. Say tomorrow Activision announces Call of Duty World War 27 or whatever. And they, put all these trailers out there and everything is big, shooty, flashy, whatever. Like, I mean, it would be sort of, for some outlets, it would be sort of silly to just not tell their audience that exists at all, because their audience is there because they want to know what games exist. But cover that in a way that says, yeah, they just announced this. They announced this a week after all this other stuff came out. They're, make a decision here. Like, there's like a clear kind of like distraction thing going on here. I mean, you can't like editorialize, but you can give your audience the context of what's going on and let them use their brains to figure out, oh, well, they're sort of distracting from the point here, because at some point they are going to announce something. I think they're going to be smart and hold off for a little while and not have anything go on during this giant PR disaster for them. I hope it continues to be a PR disaster for them, because this is really awful, the way they treat people. But yeah, I mean, like, eventually they're going to announce a game, right? They have to at some point, because they're a company that makes games. And I think that,
employees,
I mean, I think that when people write about whatever that is, however they write about it, I think they need to remember what happened. They need to remember the contents of this investigation. They need to remember all the subsequent articles that have come out, and they need to make sure that they are informing their audience about all of the context behind all of this, good and bad. Mostly bad right now.
I wonder, how do you feel about the smaller companies within the like Activision Blizzard umbrella, like Vicarious Visions, for example, being like one of those companies that just recently got kind of absorbed into Blizzard to help on Diablo, like Immortals. What do you feel as far as those smaller entities who may not be involved in the overall company struggle of what's happening within the hierarchy and the horrible things that those people have done, and dealing with the products that they're making, and or like what's going on behind their company doors, and how all of this news is affecting them?
I mean,
I just think
that's like two different questions, right? So like I don't know what's going on at Vicarious Visions. Like, I don't have that information.
I just mean, I mean anybody, like Sledgehammer, like all those other companies that have.
Like, I hope they're all okay. I mean, we've sort of established by reading all this that a lot of what happened here has been like an entrenched culture at this company for years and years and years. So yeah, like, I don't know, maybe studio number 7, whatever, is like very nice actually, and everybody inside is cool and they're great, but like that doesn't mean that this didn't have some kind of effect on them, whether that was somebody up top making things harder for them, or culture seeping in, or I'm not trying to like make accusations. I hope they're all okay. I think that at the best studio, all of this going down around them would feel like shit, honestly. Like, I hope they're taking care of themselves. I hope they're all right. Like, I hope I don't know. I don't want any more stories like this to exist, but the ones that exist, I want light to be shown on them. So I want
Yeah.
to like I
It's
hope the things that already have happened come out so that, people can make decisions, and people can take care of themselves, and people can get the support that they need, and we can clean
Change can be
house.
made.
yeah.
But I think the other thing that you were kind of asking was like what to do about these products. And I mean, I think even on like the Activision Blizzard level, even I think it's a really personal decision for everybody. Like I was big into World of Warcraft. Like I had a raid team that I raided with. I was on hiatus because I'm getting ready to go through a cross country move right now. But like, I really loved World of Warcraft for years and years and years. Played it lots, loved Blizzard games, and like I personally, I can't do it anymore. I'm not going back unless there is just a massive sweeping overhaul. I can't do it. I will not play World of Warcraft again. I won't play. I wasn't really playing many other Blizzard games. I wasn't playing any Activision games consistently, but I'm done. But that's a decision that's really personal to me. Like I've got a guild of like 20 other people who are still playing. For a couple of them quit, but like for various reasons, and I don't begrudge them that. Like you got to make your own decisions about the products you consume and how you feel about them. Like no, I believe in some ways that like a boycott is not like a realistic thing that is going to do anything. I think WoW had a lot of other problems that's like a whole other discussion, like what's going to happen to WoW. I think that depending on your level of visibility, backing out of these kinds of things, like especially if you're a content creator, I think that can have an impact, as we've already seen, like the content creators backing out of World of Warcraft, like that has had a pretty significant impact that does matter. But again, it's like a really personal decision. And so like, no, don't like stop playing Vicarious Visions games if like that's something that is like meaningful to you. But if you feel you need to stop, then stop. Like, it's a
It's
video
just
game.
it's such an interesting question, or like hard question to kind of materialize, because there's so many different facets within it, and a lot of the coverage has been so macro level on the entirety of Activision, kind of pinpointing certain head people that were doing horrible things, and then of course seeping down into the micro culture of what had been happening and people who had gotten promoted, whatever. I actually did not expect to talk about this at all, so I apologize.
I didn't really either.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Really, what it was that let me go down this route is because I want to get into the games journalist path, and I want to know from somebody that has experience in this realm how to go about things. And obviously, there's never a right answer, but I feel like you helped a lot in like my judgment for future coverage, I guess.
and the reason I brought that up is because we haven't heard a lot of people talk about how it's affecting the separate companies beyond just what has been going on with Activision Blizzard as a whole.
I think
But
people don't know.
to kind of spin on that subject, I actually really liked your tweet. I think it was from yesterday, that talked about, instead of sitting here having all these podcasts about talking about Activision Blizzard and making that your main topic, and spreading your own opinions on whatever. That's kind of my thing, is like I didn't want to put any opinions on my personal opinions out there on what's going on over there. Even though, like, I agree with you, I canceled my pre-order for Diablo 2 Immortal, and I deleted Warzone off my PlayStation 5, whatever. But I really liked your tweet about highlighting women in the industry, putting them up on a pedestal and showing all the great creators out there.
Weird timing.
And I think that's a great way to kind of spin off into a different direction for where this conversation is going. And that is, who are women in the industry that have helped you, and kind of been a role model for you in creating the type of content and the kind of things that you are able to do today?
Oh man, a whole bunch. I should probably work backwards. I actually am. I've worked mainly closely with men in the industry for the majority of my path, and I'm really lucky at IGN right now that like I am surrounded by really cool women, and women who are like in charge of me, which is so cool. It is wild to get excited about having women bosses, but it really is. So I mean, Kat Bailey, probably like first and foremost. She was the editor-in-chief of US Gamer, which was a sister site to GamesIndustry.biz. So when I was at GamesIndustry.biz, I did some freelancing stuff for her, and we knew each other there, and like I wanted to work for her for a really long time. I've always really looked up to her and admired her work and admired her leadership. And it was just, God, it was fucking tragic what happened to US Gamer. Like just a disaster. But I'm really happy that she, and it looks like everybody from USG has landed somewhere at this point. And incidentally, she has landed as my boss, one of my bosses. So she's now our senior news editor, and I get to work directly with her every day. And she's amazing editor, amazing writer. She did our reporting on the Activision Blizzard situation yesterday. Really, really wonderful reporting on her part, and I'm so proud to work with her. So she's absolutely one. Other folks at IGN, our editor-in-chief, Tina Amini, is absolutely fucking incredible. Like, the amount that she does to lead that site and to make it better and to make our reporting stronger is, gosh, just extraordinary. And you never see most of it. You don't, like, just as a reader, you don't, it's all behind the scenes. You don't know. But she's incredible, and she deserves to be celebrated. Features editor Lucy O'Brien, I get to work with her sometimes. She makes my features, so she's currently making some of my features better, but she's just like so cool, and is also just like a really, really cool person to talk to and just like get guidance from, which is really, really awesome. Gosh, I love Lucy. Oh, I didn't mean to be like a TV show reference. I just do.
Sorry.
No,
I didn't
okay.
even think about it, so you
No,
mentioned it.
Sorry. I've got really cool colleagues. Taylor, I've never had to say her last name out loud before, so I hope I get it right. Taylor Lyles. She's our new, one of our new tech editors. And she's just really smart. Like, why is she so smart? Why does she like knows things? She's like talking about like bezels on hardware, and I don't understand any of it, but she's like really smart. She just knows all this stuff, and she's able to like explain these things to me in ways that make sense. And I'm like blown away by how good she is at what she does. We briefly had Julia Alexander as our entertainment, on the entertainment side, working with us. She's like the entertainment version of me, in the sense that she's like really into the business side of things, but she's also like way better at this than me. And so I learned like so much from her briefly when she was there, and I still really love her work. She just writes, she writes so smartly and so interestingly, and she turns all the boring numbers into like really cool stories, and I admire that so much. And then, like, I guess working backwards, like when I was at GamesIndustry.biz, I got to work with Marie D'Alessandri, who's was our Academy, well, she still is. She's the Academy writer over there, and her job was to basically make this vertical for people who wanted to learn things about being in the games industry, like learn everything from like how to use Unity to make some really cool grass to like how to make sure your studio is hiring women, like basically the whole breadth. And she like worked very closely with like developers and studios to get the information to write these articles intelligently and well. And God, she's so good. She basically created that whole section of the website herself. Like, absolutely phenomenal person. Marie, I miss working with you if you can hear this. You're so cool. But yeah, no, I don't know, like a lot of other people, I'm sure I'm like forgetting it. Those are the people that I probably worked like closest with, but like, I don't know, just so many other folks across the industry who I admire, like Kim Wallace over at Game Informer, Elise Favas, who's at Fanbyte right now, Natalie Flores, who's also like freelance for Fanbyte, Daniel Rando, who's editor-in-chief over there, Janet Garcia, who is doing her own thing. She's been kind of funny now, actually. But she's been with IGN, and she's so
freelancing.
cool. It's so cool. Why is she so cool?
Pentapixels, I think, is her website now. She's doing like
that sounds right.
Independent work.
Yeah. And then some folks at iMore as well. Back when I used to do freelancing at iMore, Rebecca Spear, Carly Veloci were really, really good to me there, and really good editors. And I liked working with them. I'm sure I'm forgetting like a gajillion people, but I've been really fortunate.
Like people in the gaming industry as a whole, like making video games. Is there anyone out there that you've gotten to like talk to or interview, or that you really look up to as a developer?
Oh man, that one's really hard too. Let me think. I really enjoyed talking to a lot of people. I really enjoyed talking to Megan Fox, Glass Bottom Games, about Skatebird. She's really, really cool. She's vegan.
Skatebird.
Finally, soon to be coming out too.
Gwen Fry, who made Frey or Fry? Oh man, I'm sorry. I've asked her that before too. I never say anybody's names out loud, so I forget. But
You right.
I do.
Me.
She made Pine. I think she's actually working on something new right now. And I'm like embarrassed that I've forgotten the thing that she's working on now. But Gwen Fry is a really, really good person to talk to and a really, really cool interview. I really, really enjoyed that. Who else? What is her? Hold on. What is her last name? Sorry, this is bad radio. Christina
No, you're
Steele.
fine.
Steele. I wanted to make sure I knew her last name before I said it out loud. She's the CEO of Maximum and Modus, which are publishing companies that do a whole lot of really cool stuff. And I've had multiple really cool interviews with her. And she's like, she taught me a lot of things that I didn't know about, like how being a woman CEO basically, and like what that means, and she talks a lot about the importance of not just getting women into the game space, but getting them up into the C-suite, getting them up to like top levels, so that they can change things from the top down. And I learned a lot from her. Also, this is a weird shout out, but I love working with Stephanie Tinsley. She's in PR, which is a weird thing for a journalist to say. But the thing that I respect the most about Stephanie is she's a really cool friend. Like, she's a cool person to just talk to and exist around in a casual way. Like, I have a good time every time I see her. But also, like, she is an incredible professional. She will pitch me stuff, and I just have to say no, and she's like, cool. And we just have like a normal relationship. Like, she never gets weird. If I like tell her, hey, this isn't for us, or I can't do this,
Oh, that's cool.
it never affects anything. She's completely professional in that regard, and I respect it a lot, because there are a lot of people in the industry who I feel like wary. They're like in PR or whatever, and I think they could be really cool to like get to know as a person, but I'm like wary of it, because I don't want to have like a weird relationship where it's like, oh, you're my friend, will you do this for me? She's never like that. Like, our professional conversation is just like completely separate from the rest of it, and we just coexist, and like that's like the absolute best way to be, because we're both just doing our jobs, and we both understand that, and I really respect that and appreciate that about her.
And then the last one for this kind of section would be, what about content creators? Are there any women in the content creation industry that you really enjoy watching or would like to highlight?
Yeah, well, this is a bit of a crossover. So Janet Garcia, obviously,
Sure.
once again. I think basically Andrea Renee and everybody over there. Brittany, what's good? That
Timer, yeah.
absolutely incredible people who do just really, really good work. And I think it is sad that it is so rare for there to be an all woman show that like is huge in the way that What's Good is. But I'm so glad that it exists. Yeah, that's probably the big one. This is the embarrassing part where I admit that I don't watch a whole lot of content creators.
Oh, you're fine.
I mostly
There's so much
read.
found a day.
I'm not really much of a. I don't watch movies.
Yeah, right. I
do not
for
watch the videos.
for me, I've like was really big into Twitch like 2 years ago and the beginning of 2020. But since I've started, I work full time, and then on top of that, like trying to do the stuff for Simply Sassy and whatnot, I've been so much more into the content creation side of it that watching content has been a lot harder. I think I've been on Twitch like a total of maybe 4 times this year.
Yeah.
And I try and like watch people that are, out there, but
literally all of my friends have podcasts, and they know I can't listen.
I can't listen to all of them. Yeah.
Nope.
I don't have.
And I think that's one of the reasons why like this show makes me really happy, because we're trying to put more shows out there. We're trying to think of new things to do, but at the same time, it's like people only have so much attention. So if there's like one thing where you can go listen to someone that you want to hear about, if there's an episode that you don't care about, you don't have to listen to it. But if you want to hear about Rebekah Valentine, hey, this is the episode for you. And I like that about our show.
Yeah.
And what it lends to people.
Yeah. I'll shout out one more really quick. Not video content, but Nadia Oxford, who does Axe of the Blood God podcast with Kat Bailey, who I mentioned earlier. Axe of the Blood God rules. Nadia Oxford rules. She's a very talented writer, very cool person, and really good at podcasting. So she's awesome.
That's awesome. Thank you for that. I thought that was a nice kind of transition to get back on the swing of things. And
Like,
oh,
well,
go
real
ahead.
quickly, I'd be remiss if this question didn't come up. Since you are kind of like not committed to a specific MMORPG right now, I have to ask for my friend, Gino. Are you
Gina
like
already
are
asked
you
her.
potentially gonna play Final Fantasy 14 online?
Yeah, probably mostly just because all my friends do. Like,
Gino
There you go,
literally
Gino.
asked her this
In the Discord.
the general Discord because for some reason he's been able to say hello to every single new
As soon as
person
they
that
jump in.
joins in the server.
yeah.
He's
No,
not even like a member.
think
He's like a friend of the show.
Yeah. No, I think so probably. I mean, just I don't know. It's weird to think about because like the reason why I'm leaving WoW isn't because I'm like bored or sick of it. It's because people are having a real
Circumstances.
shitty time and have
Yeah.
had it for years. So it's weird to sort of go, well, I'm just gonna replace it with this other thing, especially because like I mean,
Yeah.
there's not like an active scandal at Square Enix, but I would be shocked
As far as we know.
if every AAA game studio wasn't like this.
Mhm.
But I mean, yeah, like realistically, I do think I will fill that hole at some point, and I think it'll probably be. I do like Guild Wars 2 quite a bit actually. I like that game a lot. But
Well, we're talking about games. What are you playing right now? Is there anything interesting you want to talk about? Bring up?
yeah, so I'm playing a couple things right now. I'm playing when I have the energy. So I sit at my computer, like I work from
Mhm.
home. I sit at my computer 8+ usually more hours a day working, and so like I love playing PC games and like games on Steam and stuff, but I'm just tired. I don't want to sit at my computer at the end of the day, so I'm like trying to play Death's Door, and it's really good, and I know it's on Xbox and I have an Xbox, but I got a preview of it on PC,
Mhm.
and I've already done 2 hours of it, and so I'm trying to play more because I don't just want to do that 2 hours over on Xbox. And I love Death's Door. It's so good. But I just like I'm slow going because I just like at the end of the day I'm like I don't want to sit here for another like 2 hours. I want to go sit on my couch with my cats if I'm gonna sit anywhere. But yeah, lots of Death's Door. The game on the couch right now, which if you've seen my Twitter, you've seen all of the delights of Yeast 9 Monstrum Nox. Which is doubly fun because my partner is currently playing Yeast 8 Lacrimosa of Donna, and we're both
Nice.
just like trading Yeast tweets. But yeah, that game, I'm posting lots of screenshots and videos of that game. It is janky on the Switch. It is a big mess. Not optimized, needs a patch so bad, but it's really fun, and I don't think I'm like capturing at all the fact that that game is super fun. It's just very silly. So those are the two main ones I'm playing. I did download Near Reincarnation on my phone the other day. I haven't gotten very far, but like
On your phone?
yeah.
You were saying ads are very obnoxious in that game, I believe.
They're no, it's not that they're obnoxious. They're pretty optional. It's one of those things where it's like watch an ad and get some gems. So it's very optional. But I just did it because I wanted the currency to do a gacha because I like yes like gacha games. I'm sorry, I do. I don't spend money on them, but I like the free money that they give me. And I watched the ad, and it is weird. It is. I'm normally very impervious to them in mobile games, but it is weird that the vibe of a Nier game is so incredibly strong, like the music and the atmosphere and
Got
everything.
you.
It is very well designed. Like even the menus, like yeah, there's like gotcha mechanics, all this stuff, but it's all still very tonally Nier.
Got
But
it.
then you open the ad and it's just like, oh, gardenscapes. And I'm like,
Okay. See,
Yokotaro did not do this. This is
I
not
play
his
mobile
work.
games, so I know what you mean when like you say like those weird ads where it's like
Yeah.
there's like a level 1 soldier and you're supposed to like get it to beat like level 999 and
it
it
wants
always
to-
goes to like the hardest one first.
It wants to
And
like interact with it, and I'm like, no, I'm just sitting here for the next 30 seconds and feed me what I want.
I will
Like,
mute the phone for 30 seconds.
it just takes you out, and that's the thing, right? Because Near Reincarnation, like, I mean, I have no opinion. I have not played much of it. I have no opinions as to whether it's a good game or not. But like, honestly, just running around these big, beautiful, empty Nier environments with Okabe's soundtrack is honestly that if that was just the game, if there was no other components, it was just hit auto and run through these big like halls and temples and stuff with this music going on. I mean, fine, honestly, I'll just do that.
See, I hadn't played it yet. I mean, I haven't touched it. So I interpreted your tweet differently. Now that you've explained it,
Yeah.
it makes way more sense.
Yeah, I probably
Because
should.
yeah, I could totally see how that would kind of just not kill the vibe, but just be so much different than the vibe that has when you're playing it. That makes way more sense.
Yeah, I probably should have explained that one a little bit better. It's not too bad, like in terms of weird extra.
Sure,
money.
add stuff. Yeah, but that's the unfortunate part about small tweets over text is sometimes some of that context gets a little lost.
Yeah.
Um,
What is-
speaking,
If people weren't going to play, if people were not interested, if anybody looked at that tweet and were very interested in near reincarnation, I don't think that's going to kill their interest.
no, 100% no.
Okay, but the real question
and
is, did you end up downloading Gardenscapes? Like,
No.
okay.
so
No.
moving
No.
from there, talking about text and writing, what inspired you to want to write instead of doing something like content creation or working on the video side of video games journalism?
Well, it was sort of an accident, right? Like I didn't being in games media wasn't like the career path that I thought like of. So I was an English and philosophy major in college, and my original intention was to go into a doctorate program and go into like the classics. I was studying ancient Greek. I was reading all these ancient texts. It was really cool. But there was a point my senior year where I went to this conference and some stuff happened. And it was a lovely time. But even though I was very happy, I realized that that was not the life path I wanted to go down. So I graduated and I had this degree, but I didn't know what I wanted to do with it. And that's that's like a very dumb, like usually people, when they joke about English degrees, it's like, oh, you're never going to have a job. But people
Or
usually
you're
kind
become
of
a
have
teacher.
yeah, like I had a plan. I knew exactly what I was going to do. And then suddenly I didn't anymore right at the end. So I just did a couple boring jobs for a few years. Like I did technical writing for an aviation company for like 3 years.
Oh.
McKenna would love that.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
It was really boring. It was just writing training programs for pilots. Like not
No.
it's so boring. It's not cool.
Rebecca, McKenna keeps track of the questions she gets right or wrong in Jeopardy. Like she loves statistics and like
I'm not gonna lie.
instructions and stuff.
A few hours ago, before I watched Avengers, I almost applied to be an air traffic controller. I was this close to applying because I saw a tweet that was like, they need air traffic controllers, apply here. I'm like, I can do this. And they
That's
said,
really cool.
no experience. I'm like, this could be. So yeah, the writing the training pro, that's really cool.
What sounds boring to a lot of people is very
No.
fascinating to McKenna, and I love that
Absolutely
about her.
fair. I mean, I guess going through boring stuff because I was like reading through manuals and writing quiz questions from them, so I guess that prepared me well for going through like boring business reports.
Mhm.
But yeah, when I was doing that, I was like, I was making money. I had insurance. I could have kept doing that job forever, and I would have been fine. Like I would have lived like a very normal life. But I was bored,
Mhm.
and I didn't know what I wanted to do. Like I didn't want to do fiction writing anymore. I just wasn't sure. And I had a friend who was currently writing for a sports site the network was called the Fan-Sided Network. He was writing for one of their sports sites, and they had a gaming site called GamesIndustry.biz. And he was like, "Oh, well, they're looking for people to write about games. You play video games and you're good at writing. Do you want to do that?" And I thought, I don't know anything about video games. Like I just play Pokemon and Assassin's Creed. Like who cares? And he's like, no, you should just do it. And he and his wife Suzanne like really encouraged me. And I applied. It was unpaid labor, which I have a million opinions about. Get paid for your labor, everybody. Even if you're inexperienced, you should still get paid for your time and labor. But anyway, all of that aside, I applied. They wanted me, and I started writing for them. And at first, I was just doing it just for goofs. Like, but I mean, this isn't really an answer to your question, but it is in the sense that like I wasn't thinking about like making choices between content creation and writing and all these other things. Like I was doing this. I wanted to write, but I wanted to write about something other than airplanes. And so I was doing that for a while, and then this is kind of where it ties on to the story from earlier. Like I discovered I really liked it. And so I started pushing myself harder and harder to get better at it. And I started getting paid like a tiny amount, again, get paid fair wages for your labor, everybody. But I got paid a tiny amount, and that was sort of helpful. It was sort of consuming my life because I was only doing it in my spare time outside of my full-time job. But I eventually got bumped up to an editor role alongside Daniel George, who is an absolutely wonderful person and the reason I'm anywhere in this industry. And he and I, one year, E3 came and went, and people were inviting us to come do like previews, and we couldn't go because we weren't at E3. And so we both made a pact. We're like, okay, we are going to save. They're not going to pay for us to go to E3. We're going to save up. We're going to go next year. And we did. We both saved up. We both went. And that was where I had like these encounters with these developers. And I was just like, this is it. This is the thing I want to do. So I, again, spent that year pushing myself really, really hard. And I was like, I'm going to start freelancing other places that are going to pay me like an amount for the work that I do. And I'm going to diversify my portfolio of work, and I'm going to get better at this. And at the end of this year, I want a job in the industry. And like in retrospect, that was like very naive of me, because there are so many talented people in this industry that cannot find full-time jobs because there are just not enough jobs in games writing. And so many really, really good people who are just perpetual freelancers, and it's not their fault. This place, it's you have to have the skill to do it, but luck is such a huge factor. And I was very lucky in that almost a year later, after doing freelancing for a whole bunch of different places, I got hired full-time at Games Industry, and that's just the direction it went. You know, like I said, I've done a little bit of podcasting. I've tried streaming. I do stream occasionally. I have a Twitch channel. It's just not for me. I express myself better in writing. Being on camera is, man, it's hard. I don't envy people who do that like every single day. I don't want to. I can be an extrovert, you know. I like people, but I don't want to be on like that all day. It's so hard. I like writing better. That's the simpler answer. I should have just led with that.
And then actually, I loved that answer, and it actually leads me into another question. Is you mentioned your games preferences were fairly limited when you started writing about games. Did writing about games make you want to expand what you were playing and try new things?
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, like I mean, this is the part where people make fun of me on the internet, but yeah, I didn't know many games. Like I grew up on Nintendo, so I've always known Nintendo pretty well. But like outside of that, I only knew like a couple games that my husband at the time, my ex-husband now, had. So like you know, Skyrim, Assassin's Creed, a couple other things. Really didn't know much. But I started writing for this site, and for the most part, I just wrote about the stuff that I knew. But the thing that really changed was that we would have like conferences, so like PSX or E3, and it was all hands on deck for those. And so I'd be there, and it would just be whoever is available will write up the news. And so I had to suddenly expand and had to learn about these games. And this is the part where people make fun of me. When they announced Dark Souls 3, I did not know what Dark Souls was. I had no idea, never heard of it before, not a clue.
I can't picture it in my head right now. Like, I don't know what Dark Souls is. Like, the game.
Good.
Like, I just can't.
Good. It's fine. Leave it that way. I love Dark Souls. I'm being silly, but it's fine. But I didn't know, and like now I love those games. But the other thing, so I began becoming aware of more than just the video games that I had grown up with. But the other thing that really changed it is for me is, especially once I stepped into that co-editor role with Dan, we did a lot of reviews. We were trying, one of the things that we did successfully is we were trying to get our website on Metacritic. And we pushed for that. And we did. By the time before I left that site, you know, they changed the name to App Trigger. So before I left App Trigger, they were on Metacritic. But in order to do that, we had to review a lot of games. And we had a small staff, and it was all either volunteers or people getting paid very little, which many other discussion. Get paid for your work. We were all part of a system that needed to pay all of us. But as a result, you know, so we had like a sign up sheet and people would sign up for reviews. But if somebody suddenly couldn't do a review for whatever reason, for like life reasons or whatever, because there's so much time. Reviewing games takes up so much time. Anyone who thinks that people like shill for companies and God, I wish we were paid thousands of dollars to give good reviews. No, reviews are a waste of time. It takes so long to do, and you don't get paid for them, especially if you're freelancing. But
And also,
anyway,
there's
so
like timelines and stuff. And it's like
God,
when you
it's
have
a
like,
nightmare, and you only
yeah.
get them like a week in advance sometimes, and
Mhm.
they're like 90 hours. Like God, oh, it was bad. I crunched on reviews, especially Breath of the Wild, real bad. Anyway,
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah.
still my favorite
Yeah.
game of all time. All that aside, if somebody suddenly had signed up for a review and we got the code, and then they suddenly couldn't do it, which happened a lot because people had kids, people had life events, and like I'm not going to be an asshole to someone who is not getting paid to do this and be like, no, you signed up for this, you have to do it. So I just took on all those reviews myself. So
Oh
I
wow.
ended up accidentally reviewing a bunch of things that I never intended to play, never intended to review, and some of them sucked. But a lot of them were really good. And I mean, it was not good conditions. I'm not proud of this, of the work that I put in. Well, I'm proud of the quality of my work. I'm not proud of the fact that I crunched to do it. That was not good.
What it took.
I could have achieved the things that I have achieved now without crunching, and I wish I had had a different mentality then. But no one was there. No one knew. No one was there to tell me this. But I did get exposed to a lot of games, and so I think my horizons are broader now. I still have basically the same preferences. If you just ask me, like, I love Nintendo, I love RPGs, I love cute soft games. But there's a lot of games that I never would have played that I have now as a result, and I'm really proud of that. Yeah.
That's awesome. And yeah, we like making fun of someone for not knowing what something is or not playing something is like
Okay.
one of the worst things in my mind because I I always think of this moment of this person that went to go see Thor for the first time, and it doesn't matter if Chris Hemsworth was the reason that they went and saw Thor. All of a sudden, they had this appreciation for the character and went to go read the comic books, right? And so now you've got this new fan who found out about these comics because of a movie that dropped because they liked Chris Hemsworth. Like, who cares if that's how they got in there? That doesn't make them any less of a comic book reader or a comic book fan.
No,
That just means that they have an awesome origin story into how they got there.
absolutely.
And your origin story sounds fantastic.
That was
That's
pretty good.
amazing.
I
I think it's a really,
will-
I mean, of course, minus the crunch part of it. I just think that that's the way you discovered all of that is really cool. Sorry, Caesar.
No, I was gonna say I just want to know because it's very easy for Phil and I to talk. McKenna, do you have any questions for Rebecca?
I do. I'm on a sticky note. So I was just curious, because like one of my questions was already answered of like what drew you to journalism, games journalism in general. My other question was, what has been your favorite article that you've written, or multiple favorite?
Oh my
Or
god.
like standouts? Yeah.
That's really hard. So I think there's like two different answers. The thing that I am proud is not the right word, but the thing that I am the most, I guess, grateful to have written. Maybe it's really hard to phrase this, and you'll see why. We were talking about doing like, reporting on studios and the culture of studios and when it's not great. And I have done a couple articles like that. And I'm not happy that I had to write them because I'm not happy that those things happened. Like they should never have happened in the first place. But I am grateful to the people who spoke to me, who trusted me to tell those stories. And in both cases, the outcome was, in both cases, studios are always going to protect themselves and it's imperfect. But in both cases, the outcome was the studio did something to clean house. And so I'm not, the closest thing I can say is that I'm proud of it. That's not quite the right feeling, but so one of them was on, maybe one of them was on Dangan Entertainment, which is a Japanese publishing company that I did a couple years ago that had a CEO who, you can read it. I don't need to go into it here, but it was not great. And the other one was more recent, was on Scavenger Studio, which did Darwin Project and is coming up on maybe releasing season at some point. And so those were the two that I've done, and I'm just grateful that people spoke to me about those and were willing to trust me with those stories. On happier notes, some stuff that I've gotten to do that I've been really excited about. Any of y'all heard of the game Moon?
Sounds familiar, but
Is it the PlayStation game that?
From Japan, yeah, in the 90s.
Yeah, it inspired. Oh my God, why am I forgetting? Undertale. Thank you. I'm like. Yes.
Yeah,
a million times games inspired Undertale. Like,
well, yes. but
very much did. Like
Okay.
so they did a re-release of that last year, 2 years ago,
la-
last year.
I think it was last year.
Last year, yeah, because I wrote this last year. And I talked to Onion Games, and they got me in touch with the composers of that soundtrack. And if you know the Moon
Oh, wow.
soundtrack, you know it is wild. It is so good. It is weird. It is like it has some normal like RPG music in it, but the vast majority of it is through like these little records that you can collect and then make your own playlist of them and play them as you just explore this world. It's such a weird game. Like, please look up Moon. I'm not going to explain the whole thing right now, but it is if you love Undertale or Earthbound or anything like that, please look it up. It's incredible. But I got to talk to the composers of this game, and they were so cool. And they were talking about their favorite songs and how like it was basically this weird time machine of like late 80s, early 90s Japanese underground music scene. It was so cool. Like, I loved getting to do that conversation, and I think like nobody read that article. I don't care. I'm just so happy that I got to do it. It was really cool. Let me see, what else have I gotten to do that was really cool. Well, very recently I got to interview the voice actor for Patrick Star, which like
Yo,
I grew up on SpongeBob, and this dude is so nice. He's like your nice dad. He is so sweet, and he like very funny and just very happy to be Patrick Star. I mean, I don't really watch SpongeBob that much anymore. I like occasionally dabble in like the movies or whatever, but like weird to get to talk to one of your childhood idols, right? Like, when does that ever happen?
McKenna, do you want to explain your username to Rebecca?
Yeah, my username is Potter Pants. The pants comes from SpongeBob. That's also the SpongeBob poster.
The SquarePants.
I'm a big fan. Yeah, I'm a big SpongeBob fan. It's so cool. Oh my god.
It was so cool, and he was like talking about Help Wanted and how it's still his favorite episode. And yeah, he was really cool. I was just like starstruck the whole time and trying to be cool about it. Yeah, those are two. I mean, I've done. Gosh, I don't know. It's hard to remember like the different things that I've written. I do miss doing. I'm excited that I get to do criticism again. Like, occasionally do reviews. I miss the way Games Industry did Game of the Year, because the way they, instead of doing like Game of the Year debates or whatever, like, I just like, I like writing about like small games, like games that other people, like most people haven't heard of. And so we just, at the end of every year, we got to write a column on just whatever game we wanted, like whatever was our game of the year. We just write about it. And so one year I wrote about East Shade, which is this beautiful game about walking around this island and painting landscapes. And that's the game. And it was like really meaningful to me at the time. And I think the piece of writing that I did about it was like really beautiful, and I'm grateful to have done it. But yeah, like I was really proud of doing that. I think the year before I wrote about Minute, which is this game about like 60, a little top-down Zelda, like 60 seconds at a time. Really, really cool. But yeah, I was really happy to get to do like that kind of writing every once in a while, where it was just like pick a game and just write something nice about it for like 1,000 words. And like, I don't know, I don't get to do that enough. That was really, really fun.
I like the Giant Bomb. Not their. I mean, I like listening to their podcast debates for Game of the Year, but I like their highlight articles where they just get a bunch of people from the industry, to write about their top 10 games of the year, and that's literally one of my favorite things to just kind of dump through, because there's so much great stuff, and a lot of the times there's certain picks in there, like Eastshade, for example, is something I didn't know about until you just mentioned it right now, and now I really want to go check it out. And there's stuff like that in those pieces, because they're personal pieces and they're about the person. It's not tied to a company where they sat in a room for 12 hours or maybe longer to try and figure out what they thought the top 10 games of the year were. Which, those matter because companies thrive on those articles, but
that's the conflict that I have doing reviews for IGN. I love doing them. They're making me a better writer against my will. They always are. Dan Stapleton is an incredible reviews editor. He makes me a better writer. But it is like a little bit of a conflict, right? Because when you write a review, you're writing from your own opinion, and it is subjective. It absolutely is, and we are encouraged to write how we feel about the game. But it is like there's always like a little bit of a conflict, because there's a part of me that just wants to sit there and just write about like the one or two things that were like really important to me and like screw the rest. But you can't really do that, right? Like, I mean, there's stuff that other people are going to care about, that they want to hear about. And so it's still my feelings. It's not like I'm writing some kind of canned version of someone else's feelings about it. But I don't know. It's like, okay, I got to go through the battle system. I got to make sure I cover that, and I got to cover this other thing. And
Just don't give it a 7.
I did, and then everybody got mad at me. But yeah, I don't know. I like those kinds of pieces. I think IGN does what it needs to. It absolutely does what it needs to do. Like IGN needs to be like the big site that covers everything. That's important. I'm not like at all trying to demean that. I'm glad we do that. I like that there are other sites that exist that do these sort of smaller pieces that are like, hey, like this is my review, but it's just like this one aspect of this game, and we're going to dive in really deep on it and talk about how it made me feel. I think that's cool too. I'm glad they can all exist in the same industry.
I guess from there, while Phil plays with his dogs, McKenna, do you have anything else you want to add? Or
Sorry.
Oh, I was just curious then about your writing process because like I'm in college.
Yeah.
I just finished my second year of school, and I was technically a journalism major for the first 2 years, and so it's like I know the textbook writing process, but I was just curious like what your writing process is like.
I did not go to journalism school, so whatever advice I have is probably wrong. Yeah, I mean, it like depends on what it is. Like, there is sort of a format for just like quick hit news articles that everybody knows. You know, most important stuff at the top, the pyramid. Someone told me about the pyramid once. And I'm like, oh, okay, sure, that makes sense, and now I do that. But with longer form pieces, you know, I do, depending on what it is, I'll do interviews, I'll do research, I'll take notes, and I'll usually have just a big old Google Doc that's just full of information, pieces of it, links to articles, bullet point lists, an outline, whatever. And then usually I will go through all that and like try to put it in sort of a like an order that makes sense for the story. So like, you know, stuff that I can just start with up top, stuff that's closer to the conclusion down at the bottom, like roughly. And then this is dumb. This is why sometimes I'm a bad writer. I look through it and like I'll find whatever is like the easiest thing to start from. So if it's like a quote or something, like even if it's just smack in the middle of the story, I'll find like whatever immediately jumps out to me is like, oh yeah, I can start writing about this right now. And I will just start writing like from there. And I think this comes from, I had a really good professor in college who she talked about shitty first drafts. And a lot of people get like writer's block, and I do sometimes too, but I'm really good at, I'm talented at one thing, and it's pushing through writer's block, because she taught us about how historically we only read the stuff that history thinks is important, right? Like we read like the best, theoretically the best of the best, like the best novels, all this other stuff.
the highest highs and the lowest lows.
We don't even read the lowest lows. We do not read the doggerel of history, is what she called it. Like the crappy writing, the page, because people have been writing for thousands of years, and most people don't write well. So like, just piles and piles of writing exists in archaeology libraries somewhere that is bad. And so she's like, it's okay to write badly because everybody does. It's normal. But the trick is to sit there and write badly for a while, and then once you've written a bunch of bad writing, you at least have something on the page, and then you can start making it better. If you don't write anything, if you just sit there staring at nothing, then you can't do anything with it, and you never get anything done. But even bad writing can be made good. So like, she ingrained that in us really, really well, and I got good at it because of her. And I can just sit there and write just like 20 pages of nonsense, and then after that go back through and be like, okay, this bit is good, this bit needs, and just like start working with it, and then it becomes better. And that's my writing process. I am very bad at writing leads because I never start from the beginning, and I always have to go through at the very end and be like, how do I introduce people to this idea? But that's the process. I write a bunch of very bad things, and then I try to make them a little bit better, and then I hand them to an editor, and an editor makes them a lot better.
I feel like that's awesome because, you know, a lot of people can say they're really good at writing an introduction, but never have the follow through to finish something. So I feel like, yes, a good hook is great, but I think finishing it is the most important part. So the fact that you are out there putting the work in and finishing this stuff is awesome. I had a teacher that, you know, would always tell me it doesn't matter where inspiration comes from, as long as you keep pushing on the project. Yep. So if you start somewhere in the middle, because that's where you were inspired, that's fine. Just as long as you keep pushing forward no matter what's happening, because sometimes something that happens later in the story can influence what happens in the beginning, because you can tie those two things together with foreshadowing or, something else. And this obviously is talking a little bit more about fiction writing, but it can definitely be applied to multiple things. And I think that's an awesome takeaway from that. Absolutely.
Yeah. If you ever want to get into writing, anybody at all, just write a bunch of shitty first drafts, and then you can always edit them.
Yeah, write it until it sounds like you meant to write it that way.
Yeah.
I guess from here, should we move to community questions, Phil?
Yeah, we can absolutely do that unless McKenna has something else that she wants to say or ask. She said she had a post-it note, so.
I do. So, some of the things were answered already, which is pretty cool. But not yet. I'm sure something will come up.
Okay. So, first community question.
We'll wait for something to come up again.
No, don't
We'll
feel
just
it's
sit-
not like this.
We'll just sit here and wait. No, we'll just fill time. It's okay. We're not going to actually ask Rebekah
No, I'll
anything
stare.
until you have a
I'll
new
be staring
question.
at you. I'll be looking at you.
Oh,
and
no, I
won't say
can't.
anything.
I can't do that for the listeners. The listeners have to have something
Philip,
to.
can you get your dog to like turn around in circles a few more times?
Yeah, probably.
So I was watching that for a second.
No, let's go to community stuff.
Yeah. So actually, why don't you go ahead and start, because I think you have one of my favorite community questions.
A classic. This one comes from Hoodie, and he asks, "How are you?"
Yeah, I saw that. What a nice question. It's weird because like I always feel compelled to most people like just say fine or whatever. I feel like always compelled to answer this sincerely, and I think it pisses people off sometimes. I'm okay. It was a bad week, really. It was a really hard it was a weird week of juxtapositions because like the industry just like imploded, and it was really hard to watch, and I was not reporting directly on this one, but it was hard to watch because I've done reporting like this before, and I've heard so many stories, and watching this all come out, not shocked by it, but also still shocked simultaneously, and really just like feeling for people that have been going through this and have been keeping it inside for years, and that it was really affecting, and watching my colleagues do work on this, and it was a weird juxtaposition because alongside that, I published a bunch of stuff this week that had nothing to do with any of this. That was all really nice and positive. Like I said, I had my interview with the voice of Patrick Starr. I did a profile on a runner from SGDQ who did this really cool showcase on an arcade cabinet that looks like a tricked out washing machine. That was a really cool thing to publish. I got to be on Nintendo Voice Chat, which I'm kind of like I'm not on that often, but I do get to be on it sometimes, and I always love being on that.
I love that show so much.
It's really good. Casey's so good. Seth, they're all so good. But I got to be on that, and that was like really really cool. And I had like some other things behind the scenes go really well for me. So it was weird because like it was like happy and full of personal accomplishment, but just like really saddened and frustrated and angry at what's going on in the industry, and then looking forward and being like, well, I'm gonna come into next week, and now there's a bunch of stuff to do. There's a bunch of work to do connected to this that I need to start working on. And so like I'm trying to embrace the weekend while I can. But I mean, this is not me bitching about my job. I love my job, and I think what I do is important. But it's still hard sometimes.
I think to me, personally, it's important to talk about how we're feeling. Especially like going into detail, because so often people will be like, "I'm fine," when really we're not.
Yeah.
So I would
think-
definitely say it's good that you actually went into detail of like how you're feeling personally,
I think
and
that's one
just
of my
generally.
favorite parts of that question, especially on this show, and why it's become one of my favorite questions, and why I never personally ask it, because it's almost always a community question from the same person. And
Well, we always kind of ask it at the start as like when the
yeah,
show
the
started.
general way, but like I like this version of it because it's definitely a more real version of it, and we always, so far with the guests that we've had on, they've always given us a real answer, and some of them have been like weirdly deep sometimes, and it's really a nice thing because like Caesar said, we're really big proponents of it's okay to not be okay. Like it's okay to feel the way you're feeling right now.
I put it on a hoodie. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much for that answer. And McKenna, I believe you have a community question.
I do. I just accidentally went out of it. I got it now. Okay, this is from at Chris Barnwell. He's they say, ask her why her favorite Pokemon is Bidoof. I don't know.
Oh,
You got it.
He was joking. That's not my favorite Pokemon, but that is quite funny.
Oh, but it's a great Pokemon.
It's a great choice. My
It's a
my
great choice.
actual favorite Pokemon is Alolan Raichu.
Ooh.
Before Alolan Raichu came out, it was a toss back and forth between Mareep and Dragonite.
Do you feel weird having your favorite Pokemon be like a Raichu when everybody is loving Pikachu?
No, because
Like-
Alolan Raichu is so spectacular. How can you not love him? He was
He's on a skateboard.
He was in
Or
New
a surfboard.
Pokemon Snap, and that like melted my heart. I was so happy to see my son in that game. You read his Pokedex. The reason why I love him is because he surfs on his tail, which is super cute. He's Raichu, and he's adorable, and he's rounder than normal Raichu, so he has like nice round curves, which is very cute. But then also, when you read his Pokedex entry, basically the summarization of that is like, everybody wonders why this guy is so cute. People think it's just because he eats a lot of fluffy pancakes. That's what we think happened. That's their theory.
That's
It's
great.
the best lore in the world. Everyone's asking why he's cute, and all we got is it's the pancakes.
I love the Pokedex.
We love a
Yeah,
Alolan
it's so
Raichu.
good. It's weird when it gets dark, like when
Oh,
the
yeah.
descriptions get dark.
Oh,
That doesn't-
Cubone is one of my favorite
I feel like that
ones.
doesn't happen so much anymore, but
Oh no,
man.
it still does.
Does
It
it?
still does. It still does.
My friend Zach Thweetson over at Kotaku does a regular column every weekend called "Here's Another Pokemon," and he highlights some of the real dark ones a lot.
Oh, man.
check that one out. It's
Yeah,
pretty
I admit I played Sword and Shield, but I didn't really dig into the Pokédex this time around. So yeah, I yeah,
yeah.
did not
But-
see any of those.
Watch out for Yamper. No, just kidding.
but Chris, I do like Bidoof very much. I think Bidoof is wonderful and should be celebrated, and was also very cute in New Pokemon Snap. So all the power and glory to Bidoof. I actually my Bidoof story is that I used to do Nuzlocke runs of Pokemon sometimes, if you know what those are, and I did one on Diamond and Pearl in which I caught a Bidoof. You have to catch certain Pokemon in that game, and I ran up against I believe the first gym. Maybe I think, or one of the early gyms. I don't remember exactly which one. Is like a rock type gym, and I had nothing that could fight it, and I was in agony. I was so frustrated. I was like, I think I'm going to give up. I don't know. And I had never considered. I had no idea that Bibarel, its evolution, was a water type. Just had never thought of that before. And somebody mentioned it to me, and like my brain exploded, and I trained up had been ignoring my Bidoof. I trained it up. I evolved it into a Bibarel. I destroyed the gym. And you know what? That Bibarel, she was very powerful. I am
Bidoof
grateful
came
to
in
her.
clutch.
Yeah, she did.
Awesome.
She's a good girl.
And
The correct answer was for because he walks.
Oh, okay.
this is
I didn't know
not
her.
technically a community question, but it's a question we ask every guest from one of the Simply Sassy members who couldn't be here today. His name is Ben. Please be excited.
Don't you have another one first, or?
No,
get
we're
to
gonna
that
we're
one?
gonna get there. We're gonna get there.
Okay.
I do want to ask that one, but I want to ask it in a minute.
Yeah.
So you know Greg Miller, you know Kind of Funny, and we asked this question to literally, well, we'll say 98% of the guests.
Yeah, we're in 99, 98.
And that is, Greg Miller is someone who is everywhere. He's somehow able to answer Instagram posts, like things on Twitter. He could probably be writing an article for Giant Bomb for the Game of the Year as we speak, while simultaneously laying in bed and presenting at the DICE Awards. I don't know.
That's all true.
But-
Yes.
all the while being an amazing human being while doing it. So we've been asking everybody, what do you think Greg Miller is? We've had theories that he's like got multiple versions of himself, robots, that he's got clones, that he's an alien from outer space, that he made a pact with the devil, that he's got a rejuvenation chamber in his back room, that he's just somehow an incredibly genuine person who is amazing at what he does. What do you think, or who do you think Greg Miller really is?
Oh well, you hit on it with the last one. I mean, I don't have a funny answer for this. He's a person. Like he is a really good and talented person who is both skilled in, but also like specifically considers thinking about all these things at the same time, which I think is like very difficult to do. Um, I have like a weird path to knowing Greg Miller. I think like most people know him by watching Kind of Funny first, and then they kind of like if they get to know him better, they do or they don't. Um, I didn't really watch Kind of Funny before I was on Games Daily. I mean, I was aware of it. I didn't just not know what it was. But like I said, I don't watch a lot of video content. I don't listen to a lot of podcasts. So I just knew he was like this important, cool person in the industry. So he invited me on and I had like this amazing time. And then I started watching occasionally. And then I became a fan of it. And then, Imran was a part of Kind of Funny for a while. And so then I was watching it even more often when he was on
So you
it.
kind of had to watch it.
Well, I wanted to.
No, yeah, no, I know.
But yeah, like I was already watching it a little bit, and then I started watching it more and more, and then I started getting to know other people who were on it too, and like falling in love with what they did. And then I started meeting Greg occasionally at events, and I've hung out with him a few times now, and so it's always like I think it's always like really powerful to like meet the people behind the screen and like recognize that they're people. They're like human beings with like thoughts and feelings and like existences that have literally nothing to do with you or anything that they do on the internet. And like he's just like he is everything that he projects out to the world. He is joyful and he is kind. And I think that it must take an incredible amount of energy and an incredible amount of goodness and thought to juggle all of the balls in the air that he does at all times and still be that kind, thoughtful person. And that goes for everybody on Kind of Funny. Like I think they all echo that and mirror that, reflect that from him as well. So it's like I am constantly impressed by what that group of people does, and I'm glad that I have gotten to sort of like exist slightly in their aura for the occasions that I have.
That's awesome.
So that's not a funny answer, but yeah.
It doesn't have to be. It's why I like the Greg Miller question, because we have like a tiered system. There's the people who see Greg from the outside, and they always have like a silly, funny, Greg Miller answer because they see that version of Greg that is projected on screen, the clown Greg, the Greg McDonald or whatever. And then you have the people who like have interacted with him and are in on the joke and they kind of play with it. But then you have the people that really kind of know him and interact with him, and they always have like this really nice, wholesome answer. And I love it every time. It's because it's always different. It's the same information just projected differently or in a different way. That's always just super fun to listen to and just to hear that he is genuinely, a great person.
Yes. Yeah.
So for the sake of it being a joke, I'll just mark down clone.
That works.
Go for it. Yes.
I'll just say that you said clone.
Yeah.
I still think one of my favorite answers was someone who joked that he had like a brother we've never met. Like, I don't remember what he said the name was, but it was like Paul or something. And it's a twin brother that looks just like Greg. And he's the one that you always see like in the Instagram photos or the setup shots where it's like he doesn't have to be on or whatever.
Someone's got to tell Jen. Like,
Yeah.
It's kind of like that show with Paul Rudd where he's, got the clone of himself.
Yeah. Well, Jen knows. I mean, Jen knows definitely.
Oh, she's got to be in on it. Yeah.
She's got to be in on it, yeah.
She's in on it. Joey's probably in on it. Tim suspects but doesn't know for sure.
What if Joey's the mastermind?
Such a Tim thing too. That would totally be the way that would go. That's funny. But somehow Cool Greg would know just because he could sense it.
Yeah, but he would never tell anybody that.
Right.
Yeah.
No, he's
like,
not a snitch.
He wouldn't be in on it. He would just find out one day and then
Yeah.
be like.
He just knows. Like before he even met Greg, he was like, that
snitches get stitches,
Yeah, that's not that guy. What are you talking
about? And then the final community question is from one Imran Khan.
Yeah, he did this.
Who says, ask her about chili dogs.
Very dumb. I don't know why he did this. No, the reason why he's asking about that is because I eat chili dogs in a way that he thinks is stupid.
Oh, okay.
So picture a chili dog.
Expound.
You've got a hot dog, you've got a bun around it, and then you've got chili and cheese on top of it. Maybe a few other things, but chili and cheese being like the core things. The way I eat chili dogs is I take my fork and I eat the dog like bite by bite, and I go down the whole dog, and somewhere about halfway down the dog, I stick the fork in, and I am unable to take like a normal human-sized bite. Are you taking notes?
So
I'm unable to take like a normal human-sized bite, and so the whole hot dog just comes up on the fork, and so I sit there and I snack on it like that, like just off the fork, the whole dog off the fork until the dog is gone. And then I take the fork and I start I take bites of the bun and I start dipping them in the remaining chili, and I eat the bun with the fork that way. That's how I eat a chili dog. He thinks that's ridiculous.
Okay, that's
to each
interesting.
their own, I guess.
It's not that interesting.
No, I definitely think it reminds me of, like, for me, like I'm someone who when I am presented with a plate of food that's not like mixed together,
Yeah.
I tend to eat everything separately. Like I'll eat the
Yeah, okay.
vegetables, then I'll eat the meat, then I'll eat, like the side or whatever. Then that's kind of what that sounds like to me. So
How do you all eat string cheese? Do you peel it?
Oh yeah.
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 I don't have string cheese, but
Okay, fine.
I would probably be the one to bite into it.
No, you can't eat string cheese that way.
Patch Nose is canceled
Probably.
by Caesar.
I don't know.
Wrong.
I don't know. Like I don't know. I've never had it. I've never had it.
Well,
Doesn't seem like something I would
don't,
like.
'cause it sounds like you did it wrong.
I will say I don't bite into Kit Kats, if that makes it better. I break them off and then
Oh yeah, okay, that's normal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so I would say
I did
that
have a friend that would do that and hate that man.
when eating string cheese by itself, it's absolutely peeling it. But there are times where I take a like sausage and or like pepperoni stick, and I will eat them simultaneously. And in that moment, if I don't have like a Colby Jack or cheddar stick to go along with it, I will eat the string cheese along with it, and it does not get peeled at that point.
Hmm. I don't know. If that's the case.
McKenna is just like thinking about it.
All right.
This is just like a long Lunchable.
Kind of, yeah.
And Lunchables are just like charcuterie for kids, which is great.
It's oh.
Oh man. So that is all of the community questions for the day. Did anyone else have any kind of questions they wanted to ask before we get into the more rapid fire stuff?
Oh gosh, I think everything, like I said before, everything so far has been answered, but there could be more down the road.
I'm sure I can come up with something, but we'll wait and see. Yeah.
Okay, so before we get into rapid fire stuff, IGN is definitely like top tier of the games journalism industry. But there have been wonderful and amazing people that have worked at IGN that have moved on to, I don't want to say better things, but they decided that their dreams didn't align with games journalism and wanted to move to something else, or they found a way that fit the content that they were trying to make better. So, like, Kind of Funny is a great example that splintered off from IGN and wanted to create content a different way. And when they talk about themselves, they don't really talk about themselves as journalists anymore. They talk about themselves as kind of like more like influencers or content creators. They fall in a weird line because they do have some gaming news sprinkled in. And then there's like Alana Pierce, who went off to go do more creation stuff and now is writing for God of War, which is incredible. Good to her. And just different people that have gone off and done different things. What is your kind of top tier aspiration? If like you could just do whatever your dream thing that you could do.
Oh, this is where I don't actually answer your question again. Because I don't know. It was sort of thrown into flux. I mean, to be candid, when I was at Games Industry, I was there for 2.5 years, and I didn't think there's any way in hell IGN would hire me. Are you kidding? Like, why? I mean, on like so many levels, because IGN is big and important and wonderful, and like, why would they want me? But also, like, I had an impression that the kind of work I was doing at Games Industry was not better or worse, but just very different from what IGN did. And so I didn't think there was any way. I was applying for other things, but like I did IGN because my now colleague there, Matt Kim, encouraged me to for their reporter position. But I just didn't think. But during those interviews, you know, so this was not the career trajectory I'd imagined for myself at all. Like I had envisioned myself staying at games industry for like several more years, and then like maybe eventually doing like a smaller version of like what Jason Schreier has done. So like not quite the level of prestige of Bloomberg, but like moving to a larger like mainstream outlet that wanted like business and like industry side coverage for a gaming vertical. That's what I thought I was going to do. But then IGN wanted me, and I don't think I could have said no to IGN no matter what. But I mean, just are you kidding? But I was really sold on it by the time I got done with the interview process, because Tina laid out this vision of what she wants to do at IGN. Like, she wants our reporting to be really good. She wants to build this team of like news people who can make us known for having like really strong reporting investigative news coverage. And it's not that they've done bad work before. Like, Joe Scrubbles has been there for a while, Matt's been there for a while. You know, they've had a team that has done good work before, but it's not, I mean, that's not what they're known for. It's not, we're not like Jason Schreier, right? Like, everybody knows him as being like the games reporter, and there are a couple other people in the industry as well. But IGN hasn't had one of those, and that's the team she wants to build. And she laid out this vision and, you know, what she was going to do to make it happen, and I was sold. And I just got there 6 months ago, so I'm here as a part of this new vision, and I want to stay here for a while. Like, I want to see what this does. I don't know if that means and part of it too is like at IGN, you know, I thought I would stay on the reporting side, and I do. I want to stay there. I want reporting to be my thing. But I do like doing reviews sometimes. I do like occasionally getting to do like little features and little like game reveals and stuff like that. I like being on camera sometimes. Not all the time. I don't want to be a content creator, but I like sometimes getting to do things like this, or getting to do like charity streams or whatever. That's really fun to me. And I get to do all that at IGN because it's so diverse and they have all the support. Like, there's so many people there that it's okay if I jump into another department for an afternoon because there's enough people there to cover it. And so what I want to do, like, the dream right now is to stay here and see what happens. Like, I don't know if that means I eventually like become an editor, or if I just stay here and become like a real good sharp reporter or something, or if I eventually move into a different department, or if I eventually decide that there is some other vision outside of IGN that I want to create. I have no idea right now, and that's honestly really cool. I worked so hard at Games Industry because I was trying to achieve something for myself, and it's kind of nice to just be like, I want to be ambitious, but I don't want to be ambitious right now. I just want to get really good at the job I'm at right now. Get really, really good, and then decide how I feel about it then. So that's where I'm at. I know that's not the question you asked, but I don't have an actual answer yet. But I will eventually. Ask
It
me
may
in a
not
year.
be the answer to the question, but I think it is a great answer. Because yeah, I mean, that's perfect. I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, ask me in a year. I might have a different idea then.
Okay.
I'm getting ready to move out to the Bay Area to work out of the
She's got her
IGN
mind on
office.
other things.
Right.
Yeah, but I mean, that's exciting. I'm gonna get once they reopen the office, I'm gonna get to actually be in a room with my colleagues.
Which is awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. It's crazy to think about the fact that you've been working there for 6 months and haven't been working in the office. I mean, mind you, things were happening in 2020. You know, I don't know if anyone's heard about it, but things were going on in 2020. Now, speaking of 2020, how was COVID for games journalism? I mean, having a whole year of not being able to go to events or do anything of that nature. What was that like?
God, it sucks shit. It's bad. It's not good. I mean, like, not good aside from the fact that, you know, thousands of people died. But like the direct impact on games journalism, it was just generally frustrating, right? Like, I think no events is very frustrating. There are a lot of like little things. Game discovery got much harder. Because a lot of the way that we discover new games, and especially smaller ones, like I really feel for indies, is just walking show floors and something catches your eye and you go play it for a little bit. You're like, oh, this is really cool. And you grab their card and you remember it and you write about it later. That I didn't get to do that. And there's literally no internet equivalent for that. Like, browsing Steam, that's not the same. Yeah, that was really tough. not being able to get hands on with stuff was frustrating. I don't think it had like a huge impact, but it's still frustrating. I think kind of the big thing was that everybody decided that instead of having like 4 to 5 big events every year where they were going to announce everything, we decided that like there's just events constantly. There's just a showcase like every week, nonstop showcases. That has not stopped. That is still going on this year. Like my calendar is just showcase this week, showcase that week, whatever. And then like previews spread out as well. So normally, you preview a bunch of games at like E3 for like a week, and you crunch, you do, but we all like there's sort of the understanding that we are going to just burn so much energy that week. We'll get all our stuff done, and then we'll take like several days off to compensate later. And that's like the way it's always been. Now it's just constantly previews, constantly all the time. And so it's just like always, right? And that, gosh, it's exhausting. I am very worried that a lot of companies have discovered through this that they don't need to go to these events to reach people. And I think some of that is good, right? Like some of it makes things more accessible for people, which is awesome. It means that more games that might not have been able to pay to get into these big events can be seen by more people. But it's also just stressful and tiring, and I just want to go back to there being like 4 or 5 events a year where I can go, I can work real hard, I can get a couple extra days off, and I can get all my coverage done, and then I can have like a couple months in between to work on all these other things that I want to work on. That's been the big impact for me. Also, I just miss people. Like people like to be like all the journalists are a clique. Well, it's not true in the sense that you mean it, but it is true that like most of us know each other. Because we all work in the same industry, we all do the same thing, we have shared experiences. So yeah, we talk to each other. And I miss my friends. I miss them. I would love to see, there are people I haven't seen in 2-3 years, and I just like, man, I miss them. I talk online, but it's not the same.
Yeah, it's definitely opened up a lot of our opportunities. Like I think again, going into kind of funny, they've been able to have guests on that they probably never would have even thought about, because originally in a studio they would have had to fly them out, or the logistics of, oh, maybe they're in town, get the guest on. But this way, it's allowed them to get a wider variety of people on for each show. And that goes into like Paris being on XCast and all that stuff. Really cool, really neat. But I do see that from what you're talking about as far as networking, like the game developers conference, that used to be a huge networking platform for indie developers to not just meet publishers and things like that, or show off their game, but also to meet other developers and to really just network themselves and show off what they're working on, get feedback, all that stuff.
Absolutely.
And that's been a really weird thing to kind of read in the discourse of social media, and see like what you're talking about, all these little games that are just kind of getting shoved under the radar because they don't have that platform to be shown on and whatnot.
Yeah,
Um,
there's definitely some effort to like compensate for that by doing like a lot of indie showcases, like the Wholesome Games Direct, Guerrilla Collective. They've done really
yeah.
good work. But again, like there is the point of saturation. When there's so many conferences, it all just gets buried. I do that. Like Annapurna had a showcase for their games recently, but they're already a pretty well beloved publisher. So I think like no matter what Annapurna did, they were always going to get people to look at that stuff.
Yeah, it's like Devolver Digital is another
Yeah.
one that I feel like is a bunch of indie games, but they're big enough now to where, they can get pretty much anybody to watch. So yeah, the PC show and the Guerrilla Collective and stuff are definitely great efforts. But you do see people not caring as much because it's not during an Xbox show or a PlayStation show.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting. How do you think things are going to develop? Like just based off of how things are changing now, do you think we'll ever get back to like some form of normalcy?
God,
You
I
think
hope
shows
so.
will start up again and
Well, PAX West sure is trying, isn't it? Huh?
Oh,
trying a
man.
keyword?
Yeah. I mean, I think we will eventually. I'm worried that it's not going to be soon with this Delta
Game
variant
Awards is
thing.
also supposed to be in person, right?
Yeah,
This year?
not sure on that. It might be.
I think Jeff Keighley said during
sure they're
Summer Games Fest
trying.
that he was
Yeah.
like, we will be back with an audience in
Yeah,
December.
I probably wouldn't be the same level of audience that they've had in the past, though. I
For
imagine.
sure.
I don't know though. GDC currently playing in person, but that's far enough out. I think that's allowed. But yeah, no, I think we get there. The Delta Variant. If you had asked me this a month ago, I would have said, yeah, by the time GDC
Sure.
comes around, we'll be in person again. The Delta variant has me real scared. But I don't know if we can get vaccinations up. Maybe I just worry. I think a lot will ride on how well PAX West goes, right? Like,
Sure.
if they cancel it, that'll be something at the last minute. If they
Mhm.
have it and there's an outbreak, that'll certainly scare everybody off for a while. So yeah, I'm kind of waiting to see what happens there. But we'll get there eventually. I think it might be a little bit longer than people want it to be.
Sure. It's got to be hard for those people that are trying to put these events together because there's so much money involved that gets exchanged hands with investors and advertisers and things like that, that it's got to hurt a lot not to have these events just as much as it could potentially hurt having them. So it's such a double-edged sword. Because the people should come first. But do we have any other questions before we get to the rapid fire stuff?
Are you excited for Stray?
Yeah, the baby game, the game about the baby. Yes, here's the other thing. I don't have a Sony. I don't own one. I have a little Xbox Series Small, and I have my PC and I have my Switch. I don't have a PlayStation, but I am moving in with Imran here soon.
Who does have these consoles?
He has a Sony. So that's going to be an interesting one because we both.
Which is
wanna
good
play
because it comes out next year.
Yeah.
So
he's great. He is I have 2 cats. He is adorably excited to be a cat dad. He bought a hoodie that says cat dad on it, but he refuses to wear it until we have moved in together, and he actually is a cat dad in training, which I think is just the cutest thing I've ever heard. But yeah, so he's really excited about Stray, and so am I. I don't think we'll both play it. I think one of us will probably watch the other one play it. But yeah, the game's good.
That gameplay was so good because it's like from the start when he's limping and he's just like in pain. I was like, oh, they put so much work into this game and it looks so good.
Yeah, the sense of progression in that trailer was really cool. Because they kind of lead you through a story of this little cat's life from being this injured stray to meeting this robot and finding technology and then being able to defend yourself.
I love B12. B12 looks so fun.
Yeah.
I love when he rubs on the legs of the robot and it gets a little heart on its face. It's so happy.
Yeah.
My favorite part was when the developer was like, he's still a cat, and he just goes up to a couch and he's just like
Yeah, that's mine too.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's super cute. Okay, so from there, just a couple silly little random rapid fire questions that we ask pretty much just everybody. They're slightly different because I don't write them down, even though I probably should. But if you had a favorite musical artist or album this year, what would it be?
Whatever the new Covet album is that I just learned about. It's like techno something. I like the band Covet. I didn't know they had an album come out last year, and I didn't know. No one told me somehow. And I just listened to it the other day, and I was like, yes, what I wanted was more Covet in my life. So yeah, that band is good.
Awesome. And what about just favorite movie off the top of your head? I know you don't watch them.
I've never seen a movie. I've never seen a movie, and I never will. No, the actual answer is Lady Bird.
Oh, that's a great answer.
Yeah. Weirdly close to my own life. Real personal. So yeah, I like that one a lot.
And the next question is, who's your favorite cat? No, I'm just kidding.
Don't do this to me.
Yeah, don't split them apart. Don't split them apart.
Yes,
they deserve to be loved equally. And then what about favorite book?
Ooh, it's tough. The embarrassing answer is House of Leaves by Mark Danielewski. The less embarrassing answer is Text from Jane Eyre by Daniel Lavery.
Why is that an embarrassing answer?
Oh, because when I was in college, I was really into metafiction, and I thought it was so deep. But I actually still really like House of Leaves.
Yeah, I think it's a great book.
Oh, it's amazing. The rest of his work is too confusing, but I love his belief.
Absolutely.
Yeah, weirdly like
Um,
the game Control, like two very similar things.
sure. Yeah, I could definitely see some parallels there. Speaking of favorite game.
Changes depending on the day, but most days it's Breath of the Wild.
Nice. Yeah, that's why I say off the top of your head. It's not like, an extreme number one all-time answer. It's just off the top of your head. So Breath of the Wild. Um, and then your favorite snack.
Ooh, okay. Complicated answer. Cream tea, which is tea with a little bit of cream in it, and a scone with clotted cream and jam.
Hmm, I
A,
dig
a
it.
British scone specifically.
Nice.
I am
That's awesome.
chasing. I am chasing that 1 week and a half I spent in England for the rest of my life.
All right. Does anyone ever have anything else to say or ask before we close out the show?
Oh gosh.
I'm sorry to get like really deep into like the what's going on in the world right now, but it's been fascinating to hear your perspective on it. I just want to say that.
Thank you.
And like I definitely am living with a lot. So thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for letting me talk about it. I'm always like, oh God, did I embarrass myself? Because I get spicy sometimes, but yeah, thank you.
And McKenna, is there anything you want to say or ask before we close out?
Hi. Thank you.
That was a great way to close out. Hello.
Yeah, just thank you for being on the show. It's been great talking to you and just hearing everything, especially with like journalism. Because like I said, I went to journalism school for 2 years. So it's just very interesting to hear, specifically with games journalism too. Because like we didn't really talk about that in school, in college, which is like
Because it's such a like a hobbyist thing that people still don't take seriously.
Yeah,
Which
and it's different in some ways too because of like game entertainment journalism in general, tech journalism in general, and games journalism I think especially are like they're a little bit outliery in terms of the way they work.
But even then, like in entertainment, people still don't respect video games, even though it's like the biggest industry.
That's true.
Like they respect movies more.
No. I said no.
And Rebekah, is there anything that you want to like promote, throw out there,
Bring up
talk
like,
about where people can find you,
Oh geez.
what to look forward to?
Well, you can find me on Twitter at Duck Valentine, where I apparently write tweets. Don't be mean, only be nice and normal. You can find my work at IGN.com. I don't really know if I have anything upcoming that I can. I just published a bunch of stuff this last week. I don't have anything upcoming that I can plug. I'm writing a big thing on Ring Fit. If I can ever
Ooh.
find time to get that up, people who have finished Ring Fit is talking about their perspectives and their stories, but I haven't had time to quite
I still
compile
need to
that
play
yet
it.
because the world's on fire. Ring Fit rules.
I need to get a new Switch and new Joy-Cons and yeah.
Ring Fit's great. Yeah, not too much else to plug right now. I don't know. Play a nice video game today for me.
There you go.
Okay, I have this question. Do you have any like important life lesson or words of wisdom that you'd like to carry with you?
There you go. I like that.
No, okay. I tell this story sometimes, and maybe it like relates to our discussion. So, like when I first started at Games Industry, my editor Brendan Sinclair, who is like an amazing fucking human being and a really good editor, and like I owe him so much. He like there's a day where like the world was bad, like it's like 2018 2019 politics were bad. I don't know what specifically was going on that day. It wasn't about games specifically. It was just the world was bad that day.
Yeah.
And we were both like in our work Slack, and we were just like, oh my god, like this is miserable. This is so sad. Like what do you even do? And I think I said something along the lines of like this is like frustrating because like I just write about games right now. Like I'm not changing the world. I'm not like there's nothing I can do. I'm just like a person who writes about video games. Like who cares, right? Like my job is not important. Like I can't do anything. Why bother? And he responded to me. He's like, no, like you're right. You know, you're you're not going to like change the course of the world by writing about video games. This job is not like important in the grand scheme of things. Sure, like you're right, but you know, we're not. Most people's aren't. Like most people are not going to change the world, but we can clean up our little corner of it. Like we can do what we can to be really good in the spaces that we're in, to be really good to other people. And in journalism specifically, to you know write about things that make our corner of the world a little bit better. But even just outside of journalism, just by being good and by being good to other people and by you know elevating others and taking care of each other, like we can clean up our little corner of the world, and that matters. Like it really does, and that's always like really really stuck with me. Is something important and something that I carry with me, both in my work and in my life. So there's my words of wisdom, not from me, from someone else.
Awesome. That's great. And on that note, I just want to say,
Rebekah, I just wanted to tell you, when things are bad, remember to bring a cardboard box. And I just want to say, you're pretty good. And you're officially out of our league.